The world is in the midst of a climate crisis, and corporations are feeling the pressure. One of the most talked about tools in the fight against global warming is the carbon credit. Promising a way for companies to neutralize their carbon emissions, these credits have become central to corporate sustainability campaigns. Yet, behind the glossy advertisements and green branding, the system is complicated, controversial, and often misunderstood. Today, we explore the real cost of carbon, examining how these credits work, why corporations rely on them, and the controversies that surround them. Understanding carbon credits. Carbon credits are essentially a way to offset carbon dioxide emissions. Each credit represents the removal or avoidance of 1 ton of carbon dioxide, achieved through projects like reforestation, renewable energy, or methane capture. In theory, a company that cannot eliminate its emissions entirely can purchase credits to fund environmental projects that reduce or remove emissions elsewhere. The intention is to create a net zero effect, ensuring that total emissions are counterbalanced by reductions. While the concept sounds straightforward, not all carbon credits are equal. The quality of a credit depends on the project generating it, the permanence of its carbon removal, and the accuracy of measurement. Some projects may not achieve the reductions promised, while others face risks such as forest fires or poor management that can negate the claimed benefits. The challenge lies in ensuring that these offsets represent real, additional, and permanent reductions in carbon emissions rather than an abstract financial transaction. Compliance and voluntary markets. There are 2 main types of carbon credit markets. Compliance markets are created by governments or international agreements, where companies are required to reduce emissions or purchase credits to meet legally binding targets. Voluntary markets, on the other hand, allow businesses to buy credits to meet self-imposed sustainability goals. While compliance markets are strictly regulated, voluntary markets are more flexible, but also more vulnerable to manipulation. In voluntary markets, companies can claim carbon neutrality without making substantial internal changes to their operations. This opens the door for greenwashing, where a company's environmental claims appear impressive but may not correspond to meaningful action. The voluntary market is also fragmented, with varying standards and verification processes, making it challenging to determine the actual impact of purchased credits. Why corporations buy carbon credits? Corporations purchase carbon credits for several reasons. One is public perception. Consumers and investors increasingly expect companies to act on climate change. Purchasing credits allows a company to claim it is offsetting its emissions while projecting a responsible and sustainable image. Another reason is cost. Reducing emissions internally can require expensive infrastructure, technology upgrades, or operational changes, whereas buying credits can be a simpler and often cheaper solution. Moreover, carbon credits provide funding for climate projects that may not otherwise receive investment. Projects like reforestation, renewable energy installations, and methane capture initiatives rely on the revenue from credit sales to operate. When executed properly, carbon credits can provide both environmental and financial benefits. However, the effectiveness of this system depends on transparency, accountability, and the real-world impact of the projects funded. The problem of greenwashing. Despite their potential, carbon credits have been widely criticized for enabling greenwashing. Many companies use them as a marketing tool, highlighting environmental responsibility while continuing to emit large quantities of greenhouse gases. Some projects do not deliver the promised carbon reductions, or the reductions are temporary and easily reversed. For example, a reforestation project might plant trees that are later destroyed by fire, insects, or poor management. Additionally, determining the additionality of a project, whether it would have occurred without the credit funding, is challenging. Some projects claim reductions that would have happened anyway, inflating the number of credits sold and giving a false sense of environmental progress. As the market has grown, the risk of low-quality credits and overclaimed reductions has increased, casting doubt on the effectiveness of voluntary offsetting as a climate solution. Risks beyond carbon reduction. Even when projects are legitimate, there are risks that can undermine their value. Forest-based projects, for instance, are vulnerable to wildfires, storms, and disease, which can release stored carbon back into the atmosphere. Timing also matters. Emissions from industrial activities are immediate, whereas tree growth and carbon capture take years, meaning the offset effect is delayed. Some projects are dependent on unstable political or economic conditions, creating further uncertainty about their permanence. Additionally, the financialization of carbon credits introduces its own risks. Credit prices fluctuate based on demand, regulation, and investor confidence. Some credits can become worthless if a project fails or loses credibility, potentially leaving companies without the climate impact they intended to purchase. While innovation, including blockchain tracking, promises greater transparency, it cannot fully solve the inherent issues of permanence and real-world effectiveness. Social and ethical implications. Carbon credit projects are not only environmental tools, they also intersect with social and ethical considerations. Many projects are located in regions where local communities have limited power or resources. Without fair governance and benefit sharing, these communities can be exploited, with profits flowing to corporations or investors rather than the people who manage and protect the land. Indigenous communities, in particular, have raised concerns about projects claiming carbon reductions on lands they stewarded for generations. Greenwashing also raises ethical questions. When corporations claim carbon neutrality through questionable credits, they mislead consumers, investors, and the public about their true environmental impact. This undermines trust in climate initiatives and can slow progress toward meaningful reductions. The social cost of poorly managed carbon projects is real, and when communities are marginalized or excluded, the consequences can be both economic and cultural. Legal and regulatory challenges. As concerns mount, governments and regulators are beginning to intervene. Legal actions have challenged misleading claims of carbon neutrality, forcing companies to justify their offset purchases and demonstrate real impact. Voluntary markets, in particular, are under scrutiny due to inconsistent standards and weak verification. Regulatory oversight is increasingly viewed as essential to ensure that credits deliver the environmental benefits promised and that corporations do not exploit the system for reputational gain. Industry initiatives are attempting to restore trust. Standards-setting bodies are creating stricter criteria for project validation, verification, and monitoring. While these reforms are a step in the right direction, the voluntary market still faces challenges, including inconsistent enforcement, price volatility, and the ongoing risk of low-quality or non-permanent credits. The true cost of carbon. The real cost of carbon credits extends far beyond the price paid per ton. It encompasses the potential delay in reducing emissions internally, the reputational risk of greenwashing, the ecological risk of project failure, and the social implications for local communities. Each credit purchased may offer a short-term solution, but if it does not result in genuine, permanent reductions, the broader impact is limited. Corporations that rely heavily on offsets rather than transforming their operations may avoid immediate expense but risk contributing to long-term climate damage. Consumers who believe in the carbon-neutral claims of companies may be misled, creating a false sense of progress, and ecosystems may suffer if projects fail to deliver the promised environmental protections. Understanding the full cost of carbon requires looking beyond the financial transaction to the real-world consequences for the planet and people. Reform and the path forward. For carbon credits to truly contribute to climate action, significant reforms are needed. Verification and transparency must be strengthened, with rigorous global standards for measuring and certifying carbon reductions. Projects must prioritize permanence and consider risks such as wildfire, political instability, and natural disasters. Companies should focus first on reducing emissions internally before relying on offsets to meet sustainability goals. Equity must also be central. Local communities should have ownership and receive benefits from carbon projects, ensuring that environmental gains do not come at the cost of social injustice. Technological innovation, such as blockchain tracking, can enhance transparency, but only within a framework of accountability and regulation. Ultimately, carbon credits should support, not replace, real reductions in emissions, serving as a bridge toward a low-carbon future rather than a marketing shortcut. Carbon credits began as a promising tool to help address climate change, allowing companies to fund environmental projects while offsetting emissions they could not yet eliminate. Over time, however, the system has revealed flaws, greenwashing, low-quality credits, and social inequities that undermine its effectiveness. Without rigorous standards, oversight, and accountability, the promise of carbon neutrality risks becoming a marketing illusion rather than a genuine solution. The true cost of carbon is not measured in dollars alone. It is measured in trust, ecological health, social equity, and the future of the planet. For carbon credits to serve their intended purpose, Corporations must combine offsets with real emission reductions, ensure transparency, and respect the communities and ecosystems involved. Only then can the market fulfill its potential as a meaningful tool in the fight against climate change. The carbon credit market holds immense potential, but also immense responsibility. Understanding the real cost of carbon is the first step in holding corporations accountable and ensuring that climate initiatives deliver genuine results. The question remains, can carbon credits become a tool for true change, or will they remain a convenient excuse for business as usual? The answer depends on the choices we make today for our planet, our communities, and our future.